Welcome, everybody. Another week, another What the F happened. And oh my goodness, is there a lot going on? You know, we are literally living in an era where the book, The Art of War, should be part of everything that is happening, because it actually is. If you look at what's going on, if you look at this administration, you look at how they're handling things, it's straight out of Sun Tzu's Art of War. But we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about steel. We're going to talk about the Treasury. We're going to talk about the Fed. We're going to talk all about FEMA, the Department of Education. We're going to talk about the penny and how great or terrible of an investment that is to actually print pennies. Not print, but mint pennies. We're going to talk about the executive orders. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff. But you got to be here. So stick around. We're going to get rolling right after this. All right, welcome. Another week, another What the F happened, commonly known as WTF. This show is a show where we look at the news and economic newsletters and white papers to figure out what the truth is. And we are going to rant, we are going to rave, and we are going to argue, I'm sure, about what's going on in the economy, the world, and your bank account. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about Ron Paul. We're going to talk about the art of war. We're going to talk about Anacott Steel. Stephen, get the video ready. Let's see how many of you remember Buy Anacott Steel.
What's up, guys? I'm pulling it up now. So I thought we were going to start with the intro video first. Here we go. We'll use this as the intro today.
We already played the intro video. Here we go. Buy Anacott Steel.
Anacott Steel's in play. Check the arms.
Looks like it's being accumulated. We've got a position in.
Yeah. Lou, Anacott. I buy. Yeah. Take it and bid it.
If I'm right, 8 3/4 won't matter. I'm taking Anacott.
This is really special. Anacott.
Buy another 50,000 Anacott.
Bet the ranch.
Buy 100,000 shares.
Wildman is sticking around. It's on automatic pilot to the
Hit 75, we could clean close to 24 mil.
First lesson in business, don't get emotional about stock. Clouds the judgment.
Which closed at 51 1/8.
Oh, there we go. So, Stephen, you missed that first intro video, but that's all right. So, Stephen and I are the hosts of this show, and we're going to have a lot of fun today. How many of you remember Gordon Gekko and Buy Anacott Steel? In the comments, put down if you remember that movie. If you don't, well, you're just too young, because that movie aired in 1987. Mr. Gordon Gekko, Michael Douglas, and Charlie Sheen rocked the house with Wall Street. And I wanted to pull up that scene because we've got a very similar thing going on. So we're going to mix two things, the art of war, and we're also going to talk about Anacott Steel. Now, that was just a movie. Anacott Steel was a real company, but it was a real company that basically traded land, not steel. But if you're really paying attention to what's going on, what's happening with tariffs, what's going on in this administration, you would know that right now, Trump just put tariffs on steel and aluminum. So if you really think about what's going on and about that statement from 1987, well, buy Anacott Steel, I think the real one should be buy U.S. Steel. And I'm going to share my screen and show you a white paper that we subscribe to. And I want you to kind of look very closely at what we're looking at right here. All right. So what we've got right here is we've got this. Now, remember those tariffs, 25%. And we're going to look at the numbers in just a second. American steel producer Cleveland-Cliffs, CLF, not making an investment recommendation. This is just the facts, skyrocketed 15% higher in trading. Not only that, Century Aluminum, also based in the USA, has jumped 10% higher. And United States Steel Corporation moved 4% by midday. All of this is a direct relationship of the tariffs. And I would say from the book, Art of War, know your enemy and know yourself to this one. Let's come down and let's look at this right here. Canada. Oh, poor Canada. Not only did they have to endure Trudeau's rule for 10 years, they not only had to go through that nonsense, but now they got a big freaking problem. And a problem that really could weigh back into Trump's decision to want to not buy, but basically make Canada the 51st state. Because check these numbers out. I don't know if you can see that, but Canada, when we come to the biggest exporters of steel to the United States of America, well, Canada definitely holds that record, and not by a little, but by a lot. 7.14 billion, followed by Mexico at 3.5 billion, by Brazil, South Korea, and we don't need to look at the rest, but look at aluminum. How much aluminum do they ship to the U.S. and export? Wow. $9.42 billion. And now there's going to be a big tariff slapped on that of 25%. So some of you would think, all right, based on that, what's going to happen? Well, I don't know. First off, Canada, they're going to lose a whole lot. But what's going to happen to trade? What's going to happen to companies? Well, I would guess you're going to see a lot more of these Canadian steel and aluminum manufacturers moving to the United States of America. But I would also have to believe you will see U.S. steel and U.S. aluminum manufacturers take the opportunity and run with it. That I got to tell you, art of war, here we go again. Take advantage of opportunities as they arise. U.S. steel, U.S. aluminum, opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. And we're going to really hit tariffs. We've hit it on every single one, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And Stephen, what other things are happening in the news right now that you think is worthy of talking about?
Well, just one of the cool, on the steel and the aluminum and just kind of what the President Trump is doing right now. I mean, it's unprecedented. Just the speed and the amount of different executive orders and different projects that they're working on right now. It's really mind-blowing. It's unprecedented. It's never been done before in the United States. And so it's been hard to keep up with, to tell you the truth. But one of the things that I like that they're doing is they're putting out these fact sheets, and I'll share this. So just on those tariffs you were just speaking about with steel and aluminum, fact sheet, kind of what's actually going on, because, as we all know, the legacy media, the CNNs, the ABC, NBC, CBS, they seem to really want to kind of push a certain agenda, to say it nicely. And so it's kind of cool to see, what they're doing at the White House with Trump in there right now, kind of saying like, here's what's actually going on, and kind of explaining it a little bit. So, countering trade practices that undermine national security. So basically saying, hey, we're doing this because it's closing basically what loopholes are that have allowed places like China to operate outside of the tariffs, because there's been a lot of exceptions for certain countries. And what they say is that China comes in and they kind of, put their steel and their products through these other countries to avoid the tariffs. And Trump's basically like, we're stopping that, we're ending that, and we're going to do what's right for the country no matter what. And that's what he's saying right now with this, restoration of Section 232 tariffs back on all these countries, not just Canada, but Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Japan, Mexico, South Korea, the EU, Ukraine, United Kingdom, all in the past had exemptions, and they're ending those right now. And then, they go on to kind of show restoring fairness to the steel and aluminum markets, why they're doing it, strengthen America's manufacturing industry, and why tariffs work and why he wants to do it. So I just think that's a pretty cool little thing that they're doing. I mean, transparency is back. We were told in 2019, the adults are coming back in the room with Biden being elected. It's going to be transparency. And I don't think he held maybe one single press conference his entire presidency. So it was the opposite of what they said. So it's kind of nice to see now. And Trump's out there. I mean, he's, JD Vance is out there. They're on talk shows. They're doing press conferences. They're very open with what they're doing. And they feel like they have a very strong mandate to do all this because of how strong the election win was, with the majority, with the large electoral college win. And they feel like they have the right to go out there and do this. And I got to tell you, people are cheering it on, Chris. People are loving it. I mean, it passed last week where they're stopping biological men from participating in, or otherwise known as trans men or trans women or whatever it is, but biological men, they're stopping them from participating in women's sports. And that's one of the largest issues in the country. I mean, it's like an 80-20 issue. CNN came out with a poll that showed only 20% of Americans were not favorable in that ruling. So when you see 80% of Chris, Americans don't agree on 80% of anything. I can say, hey, what color is this hat? And 30% of people are going to argue that it's not white. And so the fact that 80% of Americans agree that men should not be participating in women's sports is a wonderful thing. But you still see the legacy media turn on CNN and they're yapping. I can't believe he's doing this. He's a bigot. I can't believe that they're like, it's unbelievable. So the grift continues. The legacy media is continuing with their crazy agenda, but we're going to start to see that shift, man. So there's a lot going on. We can get into it though, like you said.
Yeah, it's going to be a big shift, that's for sure. And one of the things too today that, I don't know how many of you have looked this morning, but we tend to pay attention to this. Dow Jones is down 500 points. S&P's down about 45. NASDAQ is down about 114. That's across all the board. It's between 0.5% and a full percent drop. Why? Well, good old Powell and the consumer prices came out. So inflation, well, it's moving up. So right now, consumer prices rise 0.5% in January, which is higher than expected in an annual rate. They expected 3%. So what you're seeing, it should come as no surprise to this audience. I mean, if any of you have been watching this show, you would already know this is no surprise. Tariffs are inflationary because they increase the cost of goods, which is the big thing. People that don't know what the hell they're talking about are freaking out about the tariffs because they're like, I don't want the cost of goods to go up. In the short run, here's pretty much what's going to happen. And they've hinted to this. They've said this. I was waiting for the commercials on Super Bowl to have like a couple Elon commercials. That was all just hearsay, I guess. That was just a big rumor. But I thought Elon was going to put out the truth of some things. But I guess the only one that was putting out nonsense was Kanye West with his grill. They cost more than the Super Bowl commercial. And then his website, which went to one t-shirt with a swastika on it. What the hell is he trying to show or say with that message? It's all been taken down, but nonetheless, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening right now. And one of the first things, like Stephen alluded to it, is the tariffs. Tariffs in the short run are going to suck. You're seeing the U.S. Car manufacturers really kind of definitely shaking in their boots, and it's going to really force the same thing that we saw back in the 80s with Japanese car manufacturers. It's going to force that same kind of thing. I mean, almost all Japanese cars are made here. Any Japanese car you see in the United States of America is made in the United States of America. That was at first a huge problem back when they did those tariffs on Japan, trying to limit the amount of cars coming into the United States of America. But what was the result? Japan moved manufacturing to the U.S., created lots of high-paying jobs, millions upon millions of high-paying jobs at this present point, made a very good car. And where do they source a lot of their materials? The United States of America. And that's going to continue to be the trend as long as this administration's in. The tariffs will give way to more American jobs, will give way to more high-paying jobs, will give way to more industry coming from the United States. But what will the short run be? Higher prices, more inflation, more pain. But they told us this was going to happen. And, sometimes if you read The Obstacle is the Way, that book, that is exactly what we're dealing with. We can't get around the obstacle. We can't ignore the obstacle. The only way is through it. And that's going to be painful. It's not going to just be painful in the rising price. It's also probably, I would say, absolutely going to lead into a recessionary period. I can't see it happening any other way. But yet the markets up until today have pushed higher and higher and higher. And I have an article on that. But Stephen, let's cover something else before I go into this article on where the markets are going, because I got to get to it here. Here we go.
Yeah. I mean, while you're pulling that up, Chris, it's the other thing that I've noticed, in the last few weeks is almost like an energy or a vibe in the country that does seem to be shifting right now. Back to kind of like the pro-America. We went through so many years, over the last 4 years of America's kind of, not doing good. It's bad. Like it's racist, all the DEI stuff, like everything that's gone on with all the transgender stuff and the military flying rainbow flags and all that. And, now we're starting to see like the Army. Have you seen some of these Army commercials they're coming out with? Like it makes me want to go join the Army.
Yeah, dude, it looks badass.
bad motherfuckers again, like out there, like doing what army people do, not out there like doing drag shows and things like that. So it's like you physically see this happening. And then, you know, we were watching the, you know, Chris and I and our team and some of our close friends and clients were up in Sundance, Utah at one of our mastermind events over the weekend. So we all watched the Super Bowl together, and, you know, we were watching the commercials and things like that. And I don't know if you noticed it, Chris, and I went back yesterday, I was watching some of the feedback on it, but some of the reviews on the Super Bowl, but a lot of the commercials were very like American made.
Very much.
You know, even that Jeep commercial with Harrison Ford, it was all about American. Now, it got a little ruined at the end when they made a electric.
They plugged it in. What were they thinking?
So that kind of ruined it. But before that, it was a great commercial. But there was a bunch of commercials. I don't know if like the national anthem was beautifully sung. There was a commercial at the very beginning. I forgot what it was, but it was like the introduction to the Super Bowl, you know, like the Super Bowl, like welcome, like energy video that they do. It was almost like a Trump commercial. Like it was that pro-American and stuff. So we just haven't seen that in the past with some of the different cultural, you know, events in the country like the Super Bowl. So it's really cool to see that. And, you know, right now it seems like the media are on this unconstitutional crisis thing going on right now. So I don't know if you guys follow me on Facebook, but I played this video on Facebook and said, get ready for What the F this morning, because we're going to get into this stuff. So let me just play this quick little 45-second video doing what the media always does, which they get a talking point and they just repeat it over and over again. But let me just share this quick little video right here.
That is a constitutional crisis.
Causing a constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis.
That this is a genuine constitutional crisis.
Constitutional crisis.
Crisis the country has faced.
Constitutional crisis. It's going to be a constitutional crisis. We're headlong into a genuine constitutional crisis.
Witnessing is a constitutional crisis.
We are in a deep constitutional crisis. Trump has been.
Well, I think there are two issues at play.
So it's just over and over and over, just yapping about constitutional.
All the different
crisis.
stations.
And it's just so absurd. Do they just forget what happened over the last 4 years? We had the Biden administration use the Department of Employment or whatever it is to jam that vaccine mandate into all employees in the country, which was completely unconstitutional. They got shut down. They mandated our military and fired all military members that didn't get vaccinated, like just ran this up. They worked hand in hand and took a hammer to all the social media companies in this country to eliminate free speech and stop stories that they didn't want shared and just completely crushed free speech in this country. What else did they do, Chris? They eliminated, or they paid off all these student loans that the Supreme Court said, you can't do this. This is unconstitutional. And Biden's on there bragging about, oh, I'm doing it anyways. I'm paying it off. And then all of a sudden, Trump comes in and wants to start making government more efficient and stop all the wasted billions and billions and billions of dollars in crap funding and whatnot through U.S. aid that we talked about last week and everything else. And he's the one that's unconstitutional. And this is a crisis. Like, it's so transparent now that they just lie and they're full of shit. And it's just amazing to see them keep doing it. So, I mean, we'll be watching this, but it's wild, man.
It's interesting. You know, my mom bought me a Far Side little calendar for Christmas. And one of the things I thought was pretty interesting was today in the Far Side, it says they're sitting down taking a test. And I would kind of look at this like every one of those, idiots that you just were talking about on the other news stations. This is their exam to basically kind of come in. So here it says, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? A, 250 board feet, B, 500 board feet, or C, 1,000 board feet. The wildlife management finals. But that's probably very similar to what the finals look like when you're trying to become a reporter. And all it probably says is, how much can you lie? A, all the time, B, some of the time, or C, none of the time. That's your entry exam to get a job at CNN or any of the other ones.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, and then of course the largest unconstitutional real crisis is the immigration open borders over the last 4 years, and it's amazing to see that come in. And we're closing the borders and seeing some of the videos and pictures down there of them actually doing their jobs and stopping people. And if you look at the data, the statistics, I mean, the illegal flow of these people are coming into the countries like down at almost nothing right now. Like, it's amazing what they're doing. They're taking the bad people and getting them out of here. It's a beautiful thing, man. America's back. It's really cool to see. And so when we talk about tariffs and you're saying, hey, there might be some short-term, pain to be able to get the gain, is it worth it? 100% in my opinion, because we can't stay on this trajectory. I mean, we just hit this last weekend $37 trillion in national debt. $37 trillion. It's hard to fathom how much money that really is. And where you can kind of see that, Chris, is when they talk about a lot of this wasted spending when it comes to USAID and some of these projects out there, where you'll hear the people on CNN and the talking heads, they're like, oh, it's only $10 billion. Oh, it's only $300 million. Oh, it's only $2 billion. Think about that for just a second. Think about how much $1 million is. If you had right now $1 million sitting in your bank account, how much different would your life be? And then think about if you had $100 million, and then you take 100 of those, and that's 1 billion. Okay. Then we take 10 billion, then 100 billion, then 100 of those is a trillion. We're $37 trillion in debt. Like, it's such a crazy number that's why they can be like, oh, $10 billion for training, for giving condoms to the Taliban. That's really not that much money. Come on, man. Let's get back to reality here. So that's what I like to see, is some of this return to reality that we seem to be experiencing right now in this country.
Well, while you're on that,
we
Stephen,
got to pay a little short-term pain to be able to have reality again. Hey, I'm all for it, man. Let's roll.
And while I'm doing this, in the comments, folks, if you can all put what your favorite commercial was, and then in a second, after I'm done reading this list, which will probably make most of you want to throw up, which, it will make you want to throw up. But these are some of the things. So here's a list of USAID expenses: $50 million to fund condoms in Gaza. And I love that one reporter came on and said, that's false information. They're like, yeah, it wasn't just Gaza. $1.5 million in advance to advance DEI in Serbia's workplaces, $70,000 for the production of DEI music in Ireland, $47,000 for transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic in Peru, $37 million to the World Health Organization, $16 million in funding for institutional contractors in gender development offices, $4 million for funding of the Center for Climate Positive Development, whatever the hell that is, $12 million to support services to the Bureau for Resilience, Environment, and Food Security, $6 million in non-emergency funding for redundant administration services for the Center of Excellence, $3 million in non-emergency funding to provide evaluation services for planning and learning programs, $600,000 to fund technical assistance for family planning in Latin America. So that's just a little bit. But here's the thing. Let's come over here. Let's talk about FEMA. I'm sure all of you heard about this. So FEMA recently was just looked at, and it was found that they were sending a significant amount of money just last week, $59 million. Okay. Just put this in perspective to what Stephen was saying. $59 million last week was paid to luxury hotels in New York City only, who knows what the rest of them are, to house illegal migrants. The New York City mayor said $7 billion has been spent on the migrant problem in New York City alone. But yet then when we take that, this is FEMA, when we take that over to Asheville, anyone remember during the hurricane and the mudslides and the devastation that was created in Asheville? So $72.3 million is what was sent from FEMA to help 154,577 people in Asheville. Now, just put that into perspective. $50 million was sent to fund condoms. In 1 week, $59 million was sent to house illegal migrants, but yet only $72.3 million was sent to fix problems on our own soil in Asheville, where people are still struggling to get back to any sense of normality. And $700 million has been sent to LA for the wildfires. Okay, for the fires, whether they were wild or created, and we still don't know that. But isn't that funny how that works? Like all the money that's being sent to other countries for other things, condoms and transgender and all that, but yet we can't help the people of our own country, the people that are going through massive, massive problems here in this country. I don't know, man. I think they're onto something, Stephen. The Department of Education, they found 100 million so far, and they haven't even gotten started with that. Let's see. Steel and aluminum. Yep. Tariffs. I already said 25. Doge, the Doge, I don't know if you call it a department, whatever it is. We'll just call it that. $1 billion a day in savings. That's what they are basically uncovering, and they're just getting started. So far, $79 billion has been saved, but it will take time for all that to trickle in because nothing moves fast. And now they're turning over to the Treasury. They're turning over to the Department of, Department of Education. And also, let's see, there was another one, Department of Defense. But what was the other one? Where was the biggest fraud? Department of Defense is a huge one, but there was one other one. Treasury, Department of Education, Department of Defense, and we already know about the Pentagon. There's one other one. Anyway, we'll get the info on that. So they're out there turning stones and finding lots of waste. Stephen, you've been following that, have you not?
Yeah, man. It's I feel like it's something that everybody kind of always felt and knew. Kind of inside, there's a lot of crap out there. I don't think people realize just quite how absurd it truly is, though. And it's all being unmasked now. And really the true tell to it all is how the legacy media is talking about it. So all that stuff that you're reporting, Chris, guess who's not reporting on that? The legacy media. What are they reporting on, however? Elon Musk and big balls. You've been following the big ball story. So Elon Musk went out there and hired a dozen of these super smart, like rocket scientists, almost autistic-y type young people. They're 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. I can pull up the actual, ages in a minute, but they're young people that have, funny attitudes online. They grew up in an online world. And so they have these funny nicknames for each other, online. And one of their nicknames is Big Balls. And so the running joke over the last few days is that they finally got CNN and these news anchors to start referring to these people by these screen names. So they're calling them on CNN, oh, Big Balls is diving into Americans' privacy. It's just so absurd. It's like we're living in a SNL skit, but it's real life. I mean, it's really crazy. And how they're not covering the actual fraud is it's so telling. I mean, look at this one, Chris. Talk about a crazy story. Get rid of these ads. Here we go. USAID reportedly bankrolled Al-Qaeda terrorists' college tuition, unearthed records show. And it kind of gets into the 9/11 hijackers, how USAID actually was funding their education when they were here in the US. They go on to, obviously do 9/11. So it's things like that that's just like, man, like maybe we do need to completely shut this down and just start fresh, because I'm sure USAID does some good stuff. Right? I mean, there's some good things mixed in there, but the amount of corruption, it seems, is just beyond repair. It's like we got to go backwards. So I think that's where we're at with that right now.
Yeah, it's just a lot of waste. And listen, like, let's not forget that they haven't been in office all that long. I mean, today is February 12th. So do the math. I mean, it's just beyond, for me, it's just beyond comprehensible how much they've accomplished in such a short period of time. But going back to CNN, like you were talking, Stephen, there was one other thing that I just found, and some of you probably have seen this. They're having a field day bashing Trump and this administration for an executive order that Trump just signed, which goes to, and I did some research this morning. It's kind of a dull, boring topic, but you all know the Department of Justice. He called for them to revise the reasonable enforcement and guidelines on Foreign Corrupt Policies Act. So some of you would know this it's the act that basically prevented U.S. companies from bribing foreign officials and foreign presidents in other countries. So, from the surface, you look at that and you say, okay, well, U.S. companies shouldn't be able to bribe foreign officials. But that makes us less competitive. When you go to the art of war and you look at those different things and you look at all the different things it says, use deception to mislead your enemy, know when to strike and when to wait. And, many of the other things that were in the art of war, when we come down to this, what President Trump is saying is, revise this or get rid of this. And people are having a frenzy. Like now U.S. companies can bribe foreign officials. Well, really, if you dive into this, like from the surface, you're like, wow, that shouldn't happen. Okay, so you're gonna literally make U.S. companies less competitive in the world environment, in the global environment, because other countries do the exact same thing. As a matter of fact, what CNN should be covering is how the United States of America has been doing this, has been corrupting, or there's so much corruption and so much bribing of not just foreign officials, but also officials here on our soil. But we don't call it bribing. We call it lobbying. So all this is already happening. It's just happening under the false pretense of lobbying, when in other countries, that's exactly what they're doing, making them more competitive. So he's basically saying, well, let's open this up and make this competitive. Let's make the U.S. competitive, because it's all about America right now. But a lot of the people are looking at that and saying, that's a terrible thing. Why would he do that? Well, it's competitiveness. It's the art of war, if you really boil it down. Stephen, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, no, it's what makes Trump so powerful is that people don't know what he's going to do. And that's what the art of war is really all about, is always having, the 4D chess going, being 5 steps ahead and seeing things a little bit differently than other, not letting people know what your plan is, and always being a little, secretive with things. And so Trump is doing all of that and more, because what I think that, one of Trump's other great qualities, he's very obviously charismatic. He's very good at speaking and drawing people's attention and persuading people to be the way that, how he wants them to be. And so he's not losing that either as he, ages. He's getting a little bit older now, but the energy level's there. And not only is he doing stuff that really affects America for the better and things that he really truly, and all these executive orders and everything he's doing right now, but he's also kept his sense of who he is and his sense of humor. He's one of the funniest guys I've ever watched. I mean, if he wasn't Donald Trump, he probably could have been a stand-up comedian. So just a great example of that is renaming the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America. So I heard over the weekend that you can pull it up now on Google Maps. And it does show that now on Google Maps. I hadn't tried it, so we're going to try it right now live. I just pulled up Google Maps as we're sitting here. So here's googlemaps.com. Just pulled it up. Here's my little blue dot right here where I live. So we're going to scroll out. This is, of course, South Florida. So we're going to scroll out. The Gulf of Mexico is over there. Let's see. There it is, Chris. Look at that. The Gulf of America, baby. So you gotta love it. And this was pretty cool. I'll just share one more just on that. So this is when he signed the proclamation on Sunday. They were actually flying over the Gulf of America. So here, I'll play this real fast.
Air Force One is currently in international waters. For the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
Wow, he did that well. Make America great again, right? That's what we care about. Okay, here we go.
And he signed it.
He never stopped working.
It never stops working. I mean, the guy works literally 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Even when he's out there on the golf course, you see him talking business, talking to his people. Like, it's pretty amazing, man.
Well, I want to take a second and kind of come over here to some of the comments, because there are some really good ones. Brandon from the office here said, I want to know, why is it that the government agencies never seem to pass an audit, yet the government aggressively scrutinizes American citizens when auditing their taxes? That's a good point. Lynn Green said, media keeps saying we didn't vote for this. That's funny. Now that is just funny. And she goes on to say, yes, we did overwhelmingly. And it was in it basically says it was in every Trump rally what was going to happen. I mean, point in hand. I mean, when you look at the election, it wasn't just like it was a landslide. It was kind of like watching KC, no disrespect, Mr. Brent Kessler, but watching KC and the Eagles. I mean, come on, folks. Like, did Casey like forget how to play football? Like, did Mahomes forget how to like run and throw the ball? Because like that was pretty. We were watching it from Salt Lake City at our event, The Experience, and like we just couldn't believe it. Are the Eagles really that good, or were the refs just not playing ball that day? I don't know, Stephen. What do you think?
I gotta say, man, that the Eagles definitely are that good. The Chiefs definitely were not that good. They had several games this season, they probably should not have won, that put them in the position to be in the Super Bowl. They just didn't seem to be the team they've been in the past. And the Eagles are legit. The Eagles are a good team. And it was really good to see a team like the Eagles win, in my opinion. And it kind of goes along with the theme of America's back and kind of what we're doing right now with Donald Trump as the head of all this stuff. Because if you watched, some of the interviews, Jalen Hurts, who is the Eagles quarterback, I mean, that guy's gone through some shit. I mean, in college, in the national championship game, he with Alabama, he was actually benched at halftime, and Tua Tagovailoa was put in because he wasn't playing well, but he was a leader. And, he took that on the chin. He learned from being benched. He didn't bitch about it. He didn't cry about it. He didn't complain. He went out there, he got drafted, and the guy went to work. Jalen Hurts probably works harder than almost any other quarterback in the league right now. And what I loved about it is when they interview him, he's so humble. I mean, all he does is give full credit and faith to God, to his religion, to his grounding, to his foundation, and says, through all the highs, through all the lows, God is greater than all of it. And that's what gives me my strength to go out there and to see a quarterback on a Super Bowl winning team in 2025, to go out there and openly say that before and after the Super Bowl as interviews, to me is just a beautiful thing. I absolutely loved it. And to see the Eagles head coach, Soriani, to be out there with his family and his beautiful wife and two little sons on the field and just hugging them and kissing them. I mean, to me, it was a really cool moment. And I thought the Super Bowl, I thought they did a really good job. They finally took out like the end racism, like all this stuff just in your face. They took that off the field and went to more of a loving message. And to me, that's what's going to bring us all back together. Almost like when I was a kid, like we grew up with MLK and let's be together, like we'll be one people, and just so much division ever since really Obama's second term. It's just been destroying the country. So seeing some of that's coming back right now, I just really enjoyed. And so I thought the Super Bowl was pretty good other than the game itself. Of course, the halftime show was a little bit controversial with Wild Man out there talking trash about Drake and whatnot. And if you don't follow that stuff, it's pointless. But just a rapper, rap's obviously not for everybody. I thought some of the music was all right. People like Noah Harris loved it. So different opinions from different folks. A lot of people didn't really care for it. But again, it's a different.
I'd like to see a little one Super Bowl, rap. Like I'm all about that. But then bring it back to rock and roll or country. And then, it just hasn't been that way. It's been all rap. But I get it. Totally get it. I mean, it's football. But here, I want to change, I want to change back. I asked everybody what their favorite commercial was in the Super Bowl. Now, I want to play mine, and this is funny. That's all I can say. The video is not funny, but what I'm going to tell you next is incredibly funny. So I'll see if any of you thought that. To me, I thought this was the best commercial that aired. So let's roll it. Oh, great. Now my computer's not going to play. Doesn't that just figure? The hell. Thought I was going to play it. All right. Well, we're not going to be able to probably play it because
which commercial?
For some reason we got internet issues going on here still.
Which commercial?
I got it working, Stephen.
Okay.
I got it. Let me get it back up here. Yep. Here we go. This was my favorite commercial.
If I was a flower growing wild and free, all I wanted you to be my sweet bee. And if I was a tree growing tall and green, all I wanted you to shade me, be my leaf. If you were a river in the mountains, all the rumble of the water would be.
I thought this was one of the Elon commercials.
So did I. Which is why it was at the beginning one of my favorites. So cute.
You were a wink, I'd be a nod. If you were a seed, well, I'd be a pod. And if you were a floor,
Not
I'd
Elon.
wanna be a rug. And if you were a kiss, I know I'd be a hug.
All right, there it is. My favorite commercial. But what you don't know is that guy that was eating that Lay's potato chip, well, he's now dead because Lay's potato chips right now are having a little bit of a problem. Let me share that. There's a massive recall going on. Maybe some of you have seen it. Maybe some of you have not. But the recall has been boosted. Lay's classic potato chips recall boosted to the highest level. So I guess people are dying from eating these little buggers or getting very, very sick. So it's kind of funny that Lay's had that commercial, but now all of a sudden, and you can see when this was done. So February 3rd, right there, I'm just saying, kind of ironic that they've got a huge recall going on potato chips, but yet we just watched a Super Bowl commercial on that. I'm just, oh yeah, sorry. I got to be careful what I say on this show. That guy didn't really die. That was a completely joke. That was not real. You can just ignore what I said about that. The man that was eating the Lay's potato chips in the video, he's perfectly fine. He might have had a case of the shits after that, but you know, he's doing just fine.
Well, speaking of chips and not being very healthy for you, it looks like RFK Jr. is going to be confirmed. They're still going through all the votes in Congress and everything right now for the confirmation. But from all news and from what the senators are saying, it sounds like he's going to get the support he needs to become the next Secretary of Health in this country, which is going to probably bring some more very big change.
Yeah, you might not be able to buy Lay's potato chips after that happens. I'll tell you that.
He said, Chris, it's an interesting, so should Lay's potato chips be legal? Right? Is that, and for me, I'm more of the thought process of everything should be legal. Like, let people make decisions, but give people the knowledge and the information they need to make those decisions properly. So if something's bad for you and you understand it and it's right there and you have options, fine, do what you want to do. But to me, like, at least have that out there. I think that's what RFK is going to be more about, is educating people and maybe, pushing for things that are healthier alternatives and things of that nature, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to read this. We got a new, this is kind of funny. Washington, D.C., this little article that was just put on my desk. Republican Earl L. Buddy Carter released the following statement today after introducing a bill authorizing President Trump to acquire Greenland and rename it Red, White, and Blue Land. America is back and will soon be bigger than ever with the addition of Red, White, and Blue Land. President Trump has correctly identified the purchase of what now is Greenland as a national security priority, and we will proudly welcome its people to join the freest nation to ever exist when our negotiator-in-chief inks this monumental deal. We haven't heard much about Greenland since, I don't know. It's all happening so fast. It feels like it's so long ago, but it was probably a week ago. But now not only are they still talking about buying Greenland, but they've already got a new name for it. So it won't just be the Gulf of America. It will be Red, White, and Greenland. What do you think, Stephen?
Hey, why not, man? I honestly don't know anything about Greenland. So I'm going to lay off that topic. But, just for the pure entertainment value, F it. Let's take over Red, White, and Blue Land. I like it.
What's everybody's thoughts on pennies? I grew up counting pennies, rolling pennies. I mean, I'm sure many of you did too. But now, did you hear that pennies cost $3.69 to make? Like, a penny costs $3.69. You think that's a waste? Because it certainly is. But you know what? What's really sad about that? I look at this completely different. You want to know what's really, really sad about pennies costing $3.69 and the fact that pennies will probably be halted, they won't make them anymore, is that just shows you how weak the US dollar has gotten. It literally is the perfect way to understand what all the money printing that the Fed did is really done for the US dollar. It's pretty sad to look at that, but it's also sad to look at the fact that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with the Fed right now.
Right. So as I say, it's probably the biggest news of all for us. Ron Paul being tapped to go
I was
audit the Federal
gonna
Reserve.
I was just going the Ron Paul side. Now, if any of you don't know who Ron Paul is, all you need to know is he wrote the book End the Fed. That's it. All you need to know. So you can kind of see where he's going. End the Fed. Now, can they end the Fed? I don't know. I'm going to go against the grain here, and I'm going to say no. I just don't see that. I think Ron Paul will end up dead. I think a lot of shit will happen. You could trace back to the 9/11 incident and what was going on there. They were auditing. I can't remember who they were auditing at that time, but there was a big audit going on. They found a bunch of waste. Then all of a sudden planes hit the tower, or you can believe whatever you want about 9/11. Hopefully someday we'll know the truth there, because it definitely exists. But yeah, hit that a little bit, Stephen. Talk a little bit about what Ron Paul and the Fed is planning on doing. And then that goes right into, before I turn it over, goes right into what, Trump is saying. So in headline news today, there's this big battle going on. It's pretty interesting. Right now you got consumer prices going up, and Trump saying interest rates should be lowered to go hand in hand with his tariffs. And I'm going to lean on Trump a little bit. Like, that's right. Like, the Fed and the president should be working a little bit closer together here, because the Fed, it seems like they're taking this standstill. They're going to lower, or they're going to not lower rates anymore. But then you got tariffs increasing. So I get both sides, because if the Fed drops interest rates in conjunction with the tariffs, that's actually creating more inflation. And that's what the Fed is trying not to do. But then Trump is saying the tariffs are inflationary and going to hurt the American public. So we'll reduce interest rates to combat that and make it easier for Americans to get money, for businesses to use money, and so on and so forth. So this is kind of an interesting topic, but what's your whole take on Ron Paul and this whole thing? It seems like a battle brewing between Jerome Powell, the Fed, and Trump.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to see. I mean, Ron Paul has been one of the original main faces of the libertarian movement and small government for my whole lifetime, it seems like. I mean, Ron Paul's son, Rand Paul, who's also in the Senate, he also is very always calling out government waste and the hypocrisy. Every year at Christmas time, he comes out with his list of all the bull crap out there, basically all the same stuff that Doge is really getting into mainstream right now, stuff that Rand Paul has been talking about for years and years and years. But, you pull up Ron Paul, I mean, for him to go out there, and if he's going to edit the Fed and audit the Fed, and they're talking about him, possibly leading the Federal Reserve, they're floating his name out there right now to be the Fed chair to replace Jerome Powell. I mean, that is literally world changing stuff right there. I mean, if you just scroll down through Google, I mean, 2021, Ron Paul and our big fat Fed. 2015, 9 years ago, Ron Paul versus the Federal Reserve. Who's got it?
He's still alive.
2011, presidential candidate Ron Paul releases budget proposal just ripping the Federal Reserve. I mean, he wrote the book, I think in 2009, maybe it was. His book, End the Fed by Ron Paul, I believe it was in 2009 he wrote that. So he's been talking about this stuff for years and years. And to see now Trump be like, and Elon be like, go at it, man, go do your thing. I mean, that's, like you said, Chris, he's better got some serious protection, because they're going to be after that guy.
That's for sure.
I would not want to be him.
And I misspoke, actually. I want to make sure everybody, catches this. Brandon put it up there. A penny costs 3.7 cents, not $3.7. Okay. So it's so essentially, 3.7 cents is what a penny costs. So I just wanted to make sure that was clarified, because it sounded, well, I think I did say $3.69. I was just saying it wrong. All right. So who decides who runs the Fed? Chris Bizub asked. That's a good question. I would lean on Satan. Audience, who gets to decide who runs the Fed? Stephen, do you know?
Who runs the Fed?
Who runs the Fed?
The deep state? I think your guess is as good as mine.
Satan is my guess. Anyone know? I mean, I read Creature from Jekyll Island. I read, The Secrets of the Federal Reserve.
That's a good question. Who decides?
I don't think I've ever read who runs the Fed. You could go to probably the wealthiest Americans in history, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds. They probably have seats there. You could talk maybe BlackRock maybe has a little something to do with that. The deep state, and I think a lot of people, when they think of the deep state, who is the deep state? The big R, okay, the HR of the family that runs out. Yeah, I mean, I would go with just the man, the head of the Rothschild family. I think probably has a lot to do with that. Steve McCarthy said the Rockefellers probably have something to do with that. I don't know. None of us know. We are simply guessing, and that's the problem. Another problem that I see right now, as we kind of get to the last about 10 minutes of this show, I want to kind of come up here, make sure I'm getting the right one. Yep, here it is. So these are some of the things that I constantly talk about, and what we're going to talk about a little bit today for Wealth Webinar. My YouTube videos have really been covering this. If any of you have been following my YouTube videos recently, we've had some really, really good ones out, kind of explaining all this stuff. So if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, go to @the Chris Naugle and make sure you subscribe and click that little bell so that you're notified when we go live for WTF. Got a whole bunch of you coming in from YouTube, so if you already figured out that little bell that you're hitting, but definitely take a look at this right here. So this is the thing that has America confused. The markets keep going up to the right. So this is looking at the S&P 500 or the SPY, which is an ETF, same basic difference. So right here, when you're looking at it, it just keeps making new highs, and it's kind of just like, quick, when is the market going to stop? Can it stop? Is it just going to keep going higher? And if you look at this trajectory, you could make the argument. It's hard to say that there's a bearish outlook right now. It really is. Maybe that'll change after today, but it's really difficult to sit there and be bearish. When I talk about derivatives and options, it's really tough to trade options when you don't have a solid trend. And we've literally not had a solid trend. Look at the market recently. It's down, it's up, it's down, it's up. It's very volatile, but it's still pushing higher. So with that, I think another thing that is here, this next part in here is jobs. We're always talking about this, but here is conclusive evidence right here. So this is a brand new post. So right here, the annual revision of the jobs report shows nearly 600,000 fewer jobs were created than first thought during the 12-month span. So when you look at it, like, here's the discrepancy. Okay, here's the real numbers. Here's the nominal numbers. Okay, so when you're looking at the jobs numbers, and don't look at the jobs numbers. We see the news, we get excited when the jobs numbers come out, but then for some reason, isn't it funny, Stephen, how the news never posts the revisions? But here they're covering it pretty well. In today's report, but earnings data too, turns out that inflation-adjusted average weekly paycheck fell even further under Biden than previously estimated. People are earning 16.8% more, but can afford less. That's how it feels, isn't it? Some of you are making more money, but it feels like you can buy less. I know I'm making more money, but it feels like to buy the things that we used to buy, it just doesn't make sense. I often wonder, how is it that, how can people keep affording to put food on the table, put, a house, and a roof over their family's head, and afford all this stuff when the pricing is out of control? Now, some of the folks on the left would come in and be like, yeah, that's because of Trump. Trump's the reason. We had inflation going down, and now he's doing tariffs, and it's going to raise it. Because, folks, you're living in an illusion. Things weren't good under Biden. You weren't making more money. Price of goods went up way more than what your income went up. So it's a delusion. It's literally like a mirage. But yet, I don't know why and how some people can't understand the problem in the solution. But the problem and the solution require lots of pain in the short run. Probably next year, 2 years is going to be rough. I'm not looking forward to it in the slightest. I'm sure none of you are. But again, I constantly say it. You need to get your finances and get your financial house in order. We just did an event out in Utah called The Experience. We had a really amazing group of folks out there, and we were talking, and even there was several people there that had money in the markets. And when I asked them why, they literally said, well, because I don't want to pull it out and miss out on what I could potentially make, because last year I made 21% and the year before I made 18%, and I don't want to miss out on that. But what you want to miss out on, I said to them, what you want to miss out on is the 30 or 40% drop that would happen going into a recession, which is very likely. And when you get outside of the normal news and you get into these economist white papers and these newsletters, you start to see that is going to be the reality. What you thought was true is not the real truth. Stephen, what do you got to say about any of that?
Nothing to add, man. Very well said.
Yeah, right here. Forbes article. Welcome to 2030. This is, I don't know if this is a joke, but welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better.
That was a real article. Yeah, that was from last year.
That was a real article?
Yeah.
Wow.
Pushing that crazy Biden agenda, progressive agenda.
Klaus Schwab, the pandemic represents a rare but narrow window of opportunity to reflect, reimagine, and reset our world. Oh, yeah, everybody. I don't know where this dude came from. How would you even spot a real supervillain? Well, Klaus. I'm just reading some of the article here. Pretty funny stuff.
Yeah, I had one of our watchers just send me a reel they wanted me to play on Doge. You want to play that one real quick?
Yeah.
Just I like the user submitted stuff. So you guys ever see any good stories, anything like that? Send them over to us. We'd like to play and talk about what you guys are also finding online and finding entertaining. So I'll play this quick one real fast.
Do any of you all even still like America anymore? Like, I'm talking about the people who are complaining about Doge. The fact that y'all are bitching and complaining about the fact that we are finding out that our government has been laundering money and spending it on stupid shit for years is beyond me. Beyond me. Ain't no way in hell that y'all could be okay with the government spending money on this shit that they've been spending money on. I know y'all didn't okay this. Do y'all want to hear what the hell they've been spending money on? I'm quite sure that y'all have heard samples. Well, here, let me give you a couple of more bites. $7 million on various projects studying magic. $1.5 million to use kittens in a study to analyze motion sickness. $6.9 million.
For the record, I agree with that one. Motion sickness
100%.
sucks, so let's save the cats. Let's keep that one in there. All right,
Dollars. Studying smart that recognize the user's anal print.
I kind of like that one.
$2.3 million to inject dogs with cocaine. $118,000 to study if a metal replica robot, Thanos, by the way, is for Marvel Comics Thanos. I know everybody knows who Thanos is. Could really snap his fingers. Could really snap his damn fingers. The glove on. The Infinity Glove with the Infinity Stones. $75,000 in grants on a Harvard study on lizards blowing off trees with a damn leaf blower. With a leaf blower. That little squirrel couldn't even live his best life last year. Y'all had to
good for that squirrel.
Take that little squirrel out. But y'all want to blow lizards off trees with leaf blowers. Y'all from Harvard. $611,000 to evaluate microaggression among Latinx individuals with obesity. $87,944 on the role of the estrous cycle and nucleus accumbens signaling on incubation of oxycodone cravings in female rats. I'm just reading it how it sounds.
I mean, Chris, it's just
that's wild.
It
but
just
yeah,
kind of wraps it all up right there. Like she says that very well. It's just the absurdity of it all, and what the F, man.
I can't. It's just wild. And also, too, I do want to point out one thing in closing here. And this article just came in, which is why we didn't talk about this earlier. But it's a really important one. So, when we're looking at inflation, and I know the Fed, they were taking drastic measures to move inflation down to the target of 2%, and it created a lot of pain for a lot of businesses, a lot of individuals when interest rates spiked up. But here's the thing that, if you follow the news, they're all blaming the inflation going up on Trump. But here's the real numbers, folks. Pay attention. Here's the real freaking numbers. The trend reversed suddenly in October of 2024. Who was president in 2024? October? Well, do we even know? Was it Biden or was it somebody else? But nonetheless, we're not even going to talk about that. Inflation started to rise. So look at here. September 2024, we were at 2.4. We were almost at Fed target. Then it went to 2.6 in October, 2.7, 2.9, 3.0 in January. We're going the wrong direction, but you got to understand, we're not just going the wrong direction because Trump is in office like they want to say. We were already trending the wrong direction. So who do you blame on this? What do you do? Like, is it the Fed? But the Fed just can't seem to get this thing corrected the way they want, and it's going to get harder. It's March 19th is the next Fed meeting. It's going to be interesting. That's all I'm going to say. So with that being said, we're going to close this What the F down by inviting all of you to this afternoon's wealth webinar. We've got a really special guest coming on. It's going to be an epic one. It's going to be a lot of mindset today. We're going to talk about how money mindset really matters and how it matters for you. And with that being said, folks, that's going to wrap this episode of What the F Happened. And I think all of you would agree it is one heck of a ride going on out there. So buckle up, get ready, get your financial house in order because the shit's going to get real. Until next time, we'll see everybody later.